You would think in the age of OnlyFans and Instagram baddies, and just women behaving more promiscuously in general, that this is either a direct or indirect consequence of women's liberation and ultimately women's empowerment. Ask most modern day women their thoughts on how much more promiscuously women behave nowadays when compared to the past. Most will argue that this is a good thing, and it's because women are now empowered to behave in such a way. But what I can almost guarantee that they don't know is that this was all by design, and that promiscuous women are essentially just instruments for communism, and they're praised for being promiscuous not for any means of empowerment, but in order to destroy the family unit. Is it any wonder these women tend to have bad, if not no, relationship with their fathers? What we are witnessing is someone's very sinister plan is playing out very, very well, with great success. Hey, how are we all? I'm Christine Grace, and welcome back to Debunking the Lunacy. Feminism seeks to destroy the family unit. How? By promoting promiscuity. By feeding women the lie that being promiscuous is in our best interests, and by doing so, we can achieve a state of empowerment. It really is the perfect trick, and as women, we are falling for it left, right, and centre. The goal of women's liberation is to wear each female down to losing all empathy for boys, men, or babies. But Christine, how can you say all of this with no evidence? Feminism and women's liberation isn't about destruction, it's about equality. Yes, that's what you're told, I'm sure. Why would feminists say openly in the public eye their true agenda if it revealed that they had motives for destruction? All we need to do is look at the early conversations from behind closed doors, and it all becomes pretty obvious. Kate Millett, born September 14th, 1934, was an American feminist author and artist, an early and influential figure in the women's liberation movement, whose first book, Sexual Politics, began her exploration of the dynamics of power in relation to gender and sexuality. This is according to Britannica, and most other first-page Google searches will show you some results similar to this. What isn't as easy to find is that Kate Millett was a communist and a Marxist. Kate founded the National Organization of Women, where she preached these ideologies. Kate became famous publishing her books featured on the cover of Time magazine. Time called her the Karl Marx of the women's movement. This was because her book laid out a course in Marxism 101 for women. Her thesis, the family is a den of slavery with the man as the bourgeoisie and the woman and the children as the proletariat. Kate's insidious and hateful true nature would likely be completely hidden in history if it wasn't for her sister, Mallory Millett. Mallory put herself right in the firing line of feminists in order to reveal the truth. Mallory resides in New York City with her husband of over 20 years. She's a CFO for several corporations, and she's a long-standing member of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. This sits on the board of regents for the Center of Security Policy. Mallory reveals to us in an article posted to Front Page magazine the following information regarding her sister Kate. She provides, "The goal of women's liberation is to wear each female down to losing all empathy for boys, men, or babies. Your sister's books destroyed my sister's life. She was happily married with 4 kids, and she read those books, walked out on a bewildered man, and didn't look back." Mallory continues to tell us the following experience, and I will warn you, it is rather telling. It was 1969. Kate invited me to join her for a gathering at the home of her friend Lila Karp. They called the assemblage a consciousness-raising group, a typical communist exercise, something practiced in Maoist China. We gathered at a large table as the chairperson opened the meeting with a back-and-forth recitation, like a litany, a type of prayer done in the Catholic Church. But now it was Marxism, the church of the left, mimicking religious practice. They spoke the following. "Why are we here today?" she asked. "To make revolution," they answered. "What kind of revolution?" "The cultural revolution." "And how do we make cultural revolution?" "By destroying the American family." "How do we destroy the American family?" "By destroying the American patriarch." "And how do we destroy the American patriarch?" "By taking away his power." "How do we do that?" "By destroying monogamy." "How can we destroy monogamy?" Mallory says their answers left her dumbstruck, breathless, and disbelieving her ears. She says, "Was I on planet Earth? Who were these people?" Their answer, "By promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, and homosexuality." They resounded. They proceeded with a long discussion on how to advance these goals by establishing the National Organization of Women. It was clear they desired nothing less than the utter destruction of Western society. Yes, this actually happened. Your movement of love and equality and so-called liberation and empowerment was actually established in a cult of hate, division, and delusion.
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
Feminism promotes promiscuous behaviour, it embraces pornography, encourages immodesty, all in the name of liberation. When we can clearly see that it has nothing to do with liberation and everything to do with demolition, havoc, and ruin. So when I hear these women proclaiming on various podcasts, body count doesn't matter, part of me feels quite sorry for them because they genuinely believe that this statement is true, despite overwhelming proof that states the contrary. They often mention women like the suffragettes, who we all know are just glorified terrorists, and how brave these women were because they stood up and fought for their freedom to be promiscuous. We know this wasn't the case, but rather, the idea was to use promiscuity to trick women into behaving promiscuously so that they could think they were making some grand political statement of how empowered they are, when really, they're just being used for a larger, more dangerous agenda to destroy the family. So, what's the harm? Aside from the destruction of the family, of course, but I know that a lot of modern women are already under the spell of Kate Millett and her grand plan to destroy family values. Most modern women don't see the value of family anymore. So why is promiscuity bad? And why does body count matter? I'm not here to tell you why men do not value it. There's enough red pill content out there to educate you on that matter. What I'm trying to tell you is why you should care for you. And before you roll your eyes and get defensive, allow me to explain why this is scientific fact, not a case of misogyny. I actually covered this topic in episode 1 of this series, so do go check out that episode too, but I'm going to touch on it again as it is relevant to this episode as well. We know sex is different for men and women. It's a scientific fact. A high number of sexual encounters is a strong predictor of relationship dissatisfaction, instability, and infidelity. It's the second best predictor of future infidelity aside from a history of cheating. A study by Fincham and May conducted in 2017 on infidelity and romantic relationships provides that one of the most important factors found to facilitate infidelity is number of sex partners. Greater number of sex partners before marriage predicts infidelity. Along with this study, we have a further one by DM and Schmidt and others in 2019, which shows mate preferences and their behavioural manifestations, which tell us men assess and evaluate levels of sexual activity from a woman prior to long-term commitment, behaviour that would have been observable or known through social reputation in the small group lifestyles of our ancestors. Past behaviour is a good predictor of future behaviour, and having a large number of sexual partners prior to marriage is a statistical predictor of infidelity after marriage. So your promiscuous past may affect your ability to receive a long-term commitment from a man, should that be something you want. Literature published to the Oxford University Press in 2017 titled Cheap Sex, The Transformation of Men, Marriage and Monogamy provides, when compared with their peers who report fewer partners, those who self-report had 20 or more in their lifetime are twice as likely to have ever been divorced, 50% versus 27%, 3 times as likely to have cheated while married, and substantially less happy in life. The National Institute of Health looks at a more differentiated look at sociosexuality and its effects on courtship and romantic relationships. A study by Penk and Ansdorf, I think that's how you say it, in 2008 provides women who had more experience with short-term relationships in the past were more likely to have multiple sexual partners and unstable relationships in the future. Again, Busby, Willoughby and Carroll's study in 2013 demonstrates the number of sexual partners participants had was negatively associated with sexual quality, communication and relationship stability. For one age cohort, relationship satisfaction, even when controlling for a wide range of variables including education, religion, and relationship length. Joff, Foxman, and others found in 1992 there was a strong association between number of sexual partners and having an STD. Those women with 5 or more sexual partners were 8 times more likely to report having an STD than those with only one partner, which of course is pretty obvious, but it is just a factor to consider. There really is a never-ending catalogue of studies available as to why promiscuous sexual behaviour, thus having a higher body count, is no good for you. Men or women, but women far more. Why? Because women's ability to pair bond is disrupted at a far lower point than men's. Again, this all links to biology, neuroscience and evolution, so please do go check out episode 1 of this series or do your own research if you want more information on that. Feminists and just most women in general, are now living in the hypersexualized world they helped to create. Whilst it's rare women will admit it, hookup culture has left women empty and hurt. Women are more depressed, confused, lonely, and dissatisfied than before the sexual revolution. Few are aware that the seeds for this effort were planted decades ago by a small group of women who gathered regularly to promote the creed of Marxism. This group of women was of course led by Kate Millett, and it's a group that we now know today as the National Organisation of Women. You may try to argue, well, one account of this event doesn't prove anything. Enter Phyllis Chester, a psychologist, feminist, and author. Phyllis confirmed much of Mallory's account in her 2018 book titled Politically Incorrect Feminist, creating a movement with bitches, lunatics, dykes, prodigies, warriors, and Wonder Women. Great title. While trying to tell the honest truth of the good, bad, and ugly of the feminist movement, Phyllis reveals how much of the story has been jealously guarded by feminists for decades. That most of the women in the movement were incredibly broken by mental illness and drug abuse. She even refers to them as the Lost Girls. When specifically speaking of Kate Millett, Phyllis tells us, Kate had a shitload of charm, and in the beginning, a commanding presence. But she also had periods in which she couldn't sleep. She raged at others, attempted suicide, exploited her groupies, all whilst feeling victimized by them, which she was. She couldn't be counted on to remain lucid at a press conference. She also fell in love and tried to have her way quite aggressively with woman after woman, including myself. Yeah, she sounds like a real hero, someone to look up to, definitely. That's someone whose ideas I'd follow. It's these broken women who are responsible for the 50-year-old narrative that says female empowerment can only be achieved through promiscuity, abortion, and the destruction of the family unit. So why on earth would they want to destroy the family? Since when did the word family become inflammatory? An article posted by Con Carroll, commentary editor to The Washington Examiner Presents, seeks to tackle this question. The article is titled, Why the Left is Anti-Family. The article introduces Sophie Lewis, an author, one of the many modern feminist writers following in the footsteps of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. She's possessed with the pernicious idea that the nuclear family is, and I quote, the most fundamental unit of privatization and scarcity in our society, and therefore she wants to see it terminated. For reference, Marx and Engels saw the destruction of the family as absolutely essential to the success of communism, and it seems the success that they were hoping for is prevalent today here in the West. The answer as to why feminists and communists, or as they're more modernly known, leftists, want to destroy the family goes back to a faulty understanding of human history. Carroll provides, Marx and Engels both believed that man originally existed in a classless, primitive communism, in which there was no private property and no families. There were no marriages. Every man had sex with every woman in what Engels calls a promiscuous horde. It was only with the invention of marriage that private property began and people started oppressing each other by class. Communism under this worldview would just be a return to our true human nature. But of course, this entire understanding of history is nonsense. The idea that humans once lived communally without marriages was actually quite common when Marx and Engels were writing in the 19th century. But since it's been disproven. Anthropology has shown us that all societies throughout time had both marriage and families. In fact, it has been credibly argued that monogamous pair bonding is what made us human in the course of evolution. There are many reasons socialism doesn't work. It's demonstrably a false understanding of human history, which may be the most important reason of all. Just a quick browse of literally any statistics on the current state of families in Western countries shows that the plan to destroy the family unit is going very, very well, reaching record high success. The majority of babies were born to unmarried mothers in Britain for the first time in record history. The Office for National Statistics shows that out of the 624,828 live births recorded in England and Wales last year, over 320,000 were born out of wedlock, compared to 320,713 that were born to married parents or those in a civil partnership. Abortion is in full swing. To the left, children in the womb are utterly disposable. At best, women may choose to preserve their lives, but if not, they have no separate interests to be considered. In fact, children are to be treated as potential obstacles, as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in the United States said, access to reproductive health care, including abortion, helped lead to increased labour force participation. It enabled women to finish school. That increased their earning potential. Because yes, money is all that matters. This explains why the left has now embraced the language of forced birth to describe laws protecting the unborn. The default for the left is childlessness and pregnancy is somehow unnatural. And promiscuity is everywhere, and it's praised and promoted. We have 30 whole days devoted to aberrant sexual lifestyles and the fetishization of the perverse. With the normalization and extravagant celebration of this deviation, the inevitable arrives: the sexualization and grooming of children. We see grown men jiggling enormous and exposed prosthetic breasts in a young child's face. School districts shelling out hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to introduce elementary-age children to men dressed as women and behaving in a hypersexual way. The promotion of BDSM kinks by permitting students to pull others around with leashes and collars. This is the reality of the radical gay agenda. It corrupts wholly, it destroys the traditional family unit, and it directly echoes the infamous proposal of the communists: abolish the family. Marx, Engels, and Kate Millett are likely cackling away in hell as they watch the modern world unfold exactly as they wanted. And none of us seem to have any clue that we're just these little pieces adhering to their grand plan, a grand plan of destruction. But now you do know. So the question is, moving forward, will you be willfully ignorant and continue to contribute to this destruction? Or will you do your own research and share what you find to help those around you see the true reason for the current state of the world? Oppressed women, failing relationships, a lack of the family unit. Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up on your way out, and be sure to subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with all episodes of Debunking the Lunacy. And as always, let's try our best to remain harmonious in the adversity of opinion. I'll see you next time. Take care.